Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at the Smite Pro League. I'm your host, Apam. Joined by a special guest this week, we have the coach of the Renegades Rowe with us, along with the usual suspects here, Rathan and Frost. Check out my interview with Ronngyu, the support from Sanguine, a little bit later on. But first, Smite action is back after the bye week, and I guess a bunch of unexpected results this week. So let's start with maybe the start of all this unexpected results, which is Obey versus Radiance. And I gotta just say, this is a huge win for the Obey boys to beat Radiance. I know Radiance is maybe coming off not scrimming too much in the wake of COVID in their team, but you know, what are you guys' thoughts on Obey finally getting a big win this week?
I think well deserved. Honestly, they've been working hard. They're one of the teams that just double scrims pretty much any chance they can get. Climbing the way up from the bottom of the ladder. If anyone deserves it, you got to say it's them. They've made that roster change after phase one. They've been grinding ever since. So a big win for them is a big morale boost, I'm sure.
Sure.
Big win. What about the other wins that they get? Were those minor in comparison, or what are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, Radiance was top of the block
Yeah, they were top of
the whole break. So I think this is the biggest one yet. Obviously, they had the break, so that plays into it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say big. Sure. Big on paper for sure, but that level of improvement is nuts. Even from phase one, where I was saying this is going to come down to Bobby. It's going to come down to Bobby's growth as a player into that three-man fighting in the middle, into how he kind of leads and initiates or disengages in the fights later on. And he's got his confidence. I'd say his confidence back up, because he said at the beginning he was kind of nervous. I think he's definitely come through for him.
Yeah, he had a lot to prove, so I can understand the nerves, but he's coming into form, so it's good to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially the last couple weeks, he's looked at least not like detrimental to the team and been like part of the squad. Hey, I mean, there were some games early on, where
there were
there were a couple. I mean, it got to the point we talked about it past weeks, right? It got to the point where they put him on the most mobile thing that they could, because he was just out of position constantly. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
there's an art to it as a support.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you're either in position or you're way out of position, and there is no in between.
Yeah.
But no, I was really happy to see this. I will say Bobby's been working out with me like 4 times a week. They start getting better. I'm not taking credit. No, but
where's your Smite win? So
I don't know what. Yeah, I'm rubbing off on him all my glorious Smite plays. But no, I honestly I've been a big believer in these guys since the beginning of last year, right? And kind of watching them, because the core is really still there, or not quite the core, but Wowie, Ducky, Bobby.
The foundation, at least, not the core.
Yeah, they've been around, and I've watched them grow last year, and not really come up, besides the big set. It kind of came up empty-handed. The first half of this year, they had a lot of games where they were just absolutely blowing other teams out of the water, and then they just hard through, or the set didn't really reflect the way that they played, where they get 2-0'd, but they were close games. And now to see them kind of finally turn it on. And I hate making excuses for it, but it does suck that Radiance weren't able to practice for 3 weeks. But I don't think a team like that goes from winning most of their games against the top ranked teams to not, just because you haven't had a good scrim in a while, right? I mean, Cyclone could take 6 months off and come back to the game, and he'd still be nuts at it, right?
That's right. Yeah, I do think they'll bounce back, but yeah, they're definitely a little bit weaker now than what they should be. But that, I don't think it takes them away.
Not being able to scrim because of COVID kind of sucks. But I think it's a cheap way to take that win away from Obey, because they looked absolutely top of form.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. I thought Radiance played well. I don't think they were just falling all over themselves to the point where they threw the games. It wasn't like they played terribly. Obey just played better.
Game 1, for an example, I thought Obey were just going to run away with it, but they held strong. And I've had a lot of long games against Radiance, and they can defend so well. And if they needed practice, if they needed warm-up time, it was game 1. They had what was it, 50-something minutes?
Yeah, 53 minutes.
All the warm-up you could ever want.
Yeah, no kidding.
But we've seen what happens to Benji after he has a long game, though. His brain just melts after that, dies to back camps.
That's every solo laner.
Yeah.
It starts to melt from minute 1 as a solo laner, so it's you're on a ticking time bomb.
Sure. All right, then. Moving on to I guess another unexpected result this week, which was E United versus Sanguine, and we see E United win this game, also win this set also in 3 games. I guess the first thing we really have to talk about here is the brand new roster for E United. Did you guys expect them to sort of show up against a top 4 team like this right away?
I think I did. I think every team's going to have such a big honeymoon phase. I think they brought in, obviously, Baskin, you can say this superstar, whatever. I think Gino's a solid player as well, but I think more importantly, they just brought in the structure that they needed. So they should have good results early, and they did. We'll see how much of that is the honeymoon phase and things like that. I don't know how much they're practicing, which could hurt them a little bit just because they have school, but I think I think some of them are really intelligent players, like Baskin especially, and then good players as well. And that's a great mix when it comes to the right structure and the right, I guess structure is just the main word. It's like just behind the scenes and how they work as a team. I think that's where their practice will be really efficient. And I think they had like 1.5, maybe 2 weeks of practice leading up to the Sanguine game before the roster change, or like, after the roster change, sorry. So they were well prepared for sure.
Yeah, I went back and I changed my vote. We had a discussion on Monday, and I knew what the changes were likely to be. Nothing was publicly confirmed yet when I voted last week. But reading like Herwin's tweet longer about why they did what they did, where they felt they were weak, what they felt like the new players brought. Like normally you just get a roster change, you're like, oh, they're just trying something different. But like hearing the logic behind why they made the changes that they did was very compelling, which is why I switched my vote.
Sure.
And then also hearing on top of that, Sanguine took the bye week as a vacation. They took the week off. They didn't scrim. Biggie talked about it the last time we were on, that it was, he thought the exact same thing, right? He said, I think they may actually end up looking weaker out of this bye round because, a lot of teams are taking breaks, or some teams are taking breaks, and they're one of them. And after hearing that and then hearing the reasoning behind the United changes, I was like, damn, like they're going to come out swinging. I was excited to see him do it. It's always good to see Baskin back in the league, but
yeah, of course.
I did not think that Sanguine played particularly well. Again, it's not to take anything away from United, but I think we didn't see a lot of the Sanguine that we typically do. And I think that hurts, and whether it's the practice or United just taking it to them and they were caught flat-footed, but that was my second favorite set of the day.
Yeah,
the weekend, really.
I was gonna say there was only 2 sets that day.
Yeah, I know that was the joke, but
oh, okay.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I think the break, like just talking about the break quickly that Sanguine might have took.
Sure.
I don't know if it's confirmed or what, but I mean, those things typically are for the long term anyway. Like if they feel like they're going to get burnt out towards, the later end of the split where playoffs start to come up and that's really important to secure. And if they want to play the long game and like avoid that burnout and make sure they have a really strong playoffs, then more power to them. It would hurt them in the short run, but again, it's like the Obey Radiant situation. I don't think it takes much away from United. I think they won the game because they played better, and then I think they picked better as well. And I will say that it was really entertaining to see the Twitch chat and things like that after game 1, because is like as soon as one game's over, people don't remember that it's a best of 3, right? They're just talking smack as soon as that one game's over, and it's just like, we'll just wait and see. You can talk smack after, say anything you want in the Reddit comments, whatever, but after one game, just chill.
Sure. Frost, I just wanted to maybe get your take on the debut for this new roster for United.
So, see, on the debut, and then also have a point to make about just the season.
Sure.
Like, in particular right now. But for this one, I am, like, the biggest Baskin fanboy. If there's anyone thinking Baskin is the faker of Smite, that's usually me shouting it from the tallest building I can find. First game, it was sort of like I'm always keeping my eye on the support, because I feel like the teams are going to be as strong as their supports are. Gino to me looked a little rigid coming off of that one. Sanguine did their thing where they just kind of take a fight, they play well together. All right, you go for it. I think they started getting a little more fast and loose in the second one, but I could sense like a sort of panic, and they went into their okay, just pick your best gods. Like that match was just iconic. You got Snoopy on Rom. I'm pretty sure Gino's known for Kazumbo in the SML. Yanis and Hurrywin. Bastet, Scream. He won Worlds on that. Cerberus with Baskin. I'm pretty sure he's kind of also taken that one. Like the boy plays so many things that it's just all iconic for him. And that's when it went, okay, we're not playing the team fight game anymore. Poor who was it? Shinto was just getting sniped over and over and over again. And I think that one win there sort of relaxed him just enough going into the third game, but it was also falling apart at the start. If I can get that time. In the middle of that set, they were diving, I want to say like around 14 minutes, they were diving tier 1. Mm-hmm. They were heading in, and then they all just stopped in their tracks with Baskin at the forefront. This was United. They were the ones going to dive, but then they just stopped immediately. And it felt like this is why they brought in Baskin, be a voice, to be a leader. It felt like I could hear the comms that weren't even playing and him just going, no, we're not doing this. And they buggered off to do who knows what else there. Now that they have a leader against the top team, that kind of worries me a little bit because he sort of guides from, like, in football it's referred to as a watch the hips. You can get juked out because they'll fake you out with where their head is, where their shoulders are, but their hips are going to go where they're going to go. So it's a sort of what teams are going to be able to deal with Baskin's shot calling and what teams are going to be able to go, okay, just figure out where Baskin's headed. That's where the rest of the team's going. He's almost like projecting their calls out. But he does have that. He has filled that role of being a leader.
Sure. All right, moving on to Ghost versus SSG. This is sort of the battle of the Goliaths in the league, so to speak. I guess this is basically like 1 and 2 in the standings coming into this week, if I'm correct.
I think so. I'm not sure. I definitely rate them up there personally. I don't pay too much attention to exact standings because I feel like behind the scenes it change pretty common. But yeah, I would definitely put them both in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, and we had like 2 very quick games, I would say, in the beginning, with Ghost really pushing them hard in game 1 and SSG basically returning the favor in game 2. And then game 3 was sort of this really sort of back and forth affair that was quite long. What are your guys' first thoughts on this set, Ghost versus SSG? SSG did seem a little bit underwhelming. Anything that popped out to you guys?
Soul Lane. Oh, I'm a coach first of all, but as a Soul Laner, just the Soul Lane picks are really fun. I think with since Nike got nerfed, after the MSI patch, and Sundo got brought into the game that removes shields, we didn't really see much of Nike solo, but we've seen a bunch with Finoke now, and then Guan Yu as well, just buffed, and Nick is already pulling it out. So I think it was really entertaining for that lane specifically.
Juan is sleeper right now. That god's really good, and nobody's playing him.
God, Nika even said that he said on stream the buff was going to do nothing, that Guan Yu was useless. And look at him. Every time a pro goes, nah, that character's trash, I almost expect them to go for it.
Sure. What exactly were the Guan buffs? They're escaping my mind right now. Do you have them?
5 damage on his tick. That's it. It's not really much. It's just to remind you. I'd say it's a small buff. My team disagrees with me. But it's not really. It just reminds you that God exists, and they start think about it. It's like when a God gets a cool skin. Yep. They're like, oh, I just want to play this in a scrim. It'll be fun, and they're like, well, this is pretty good. That kind of thing. Yeah.
That is.
It's just he's still Guan. Really.
True.
Not much has changed. Itemization's about the same, but he sort of frags out. It's like when we played ranked. I don't know if he still plays anymore, but Daikaris, he was known as the Guan Yu main. Grandmaster all the time with this character, and it's just go cool down, team fights, dive the back line, then go back to your team, heal, press some 2s, you got your ult back up, and that's exactly what Nika was doing the entire time. I don't know why we haven't seen it until now. Is that 5 extra damage really? Oh, that's what it was. That's what he's missing. They keep getting out with just a hair of health.
People kind of just didn't think about him, but realistically, if let's go back where we missed all the red flags. Warrior's Blessing got changed, so tick damage is a lot better against Warrior's Blessing now. Berserker's got shield. Berserker's shield got changed. So Glad Shield. I'm trying to refer to, and Berserker's, I guess. So there's a lot less sustain. So Guan Yu didn't get affected by that and still stays in the conversation. It's just everything around him is kind of fallen away, and we didn't realize that Guan Yu was still sticking up there. But now he is. I don't think he's standing that tall. I think he's good. He's definitely a sleeper, but for sure we'll see more of him. Yeah. It's funny that none of us are talking about the Nike pick as well because she's so boring to watch. I just like the fact that there's more picks, but nobody likes to play against the Nike.
Well, I think we all know that you just have to buy Sunder versus the Nike, right? That's the big counterplay.
Well, Yeah, you would think. I mean, apparently it's not that simple, but
I guess not.
it's
Yeah,
what it is.
I don't think anyone. Oh, they did buy Sunder in game 2, but in game 1, I don't think they bought
Yeah,
Sunder into the Nike at
game
all.
1 they lost to it. Game 2 they bought Sunder and won. So I guess in theory the math checks out. The evidence is there that Sunder will win against the Nike.
Sure. Anything else you guys want to mention about this set? I know we didn't talk too much about Ghost because I think Ghost sort of did what they game planned for in games 1 and 3. Is there something I'm missing with this Ghost squad? They're just looking like the top of the table here.
Yeah, I mean, also they kind of just like at least game 1 and game 2 they kind of just played the same stuff as well. And did he play Hebo all 3 games?
I think he played Hebo all 3. Yeah.
All 3, but he got beads. He got beads first relic in the second game when he got run over.
Yeah. This is another example of like just blink mids being like propelling a specific god to something extra. But yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of like quintessential them, so there wasn't much to comment on. It's something we've seen weeks before. It was just like, what is SSG's answer going to be to it?
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Aside from that, Panda Cat looks like he's sort of found himself again. He was having some rough games, man. Some rough. Maybe his confidence went down after that one game where it was like 1-20, and he was the only one who died. Because then he had a few games where it went pretty rough, and now he's like he barely died at all in this set.
Yeah, he had a solid week for sure.
This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with the support for Sanguine Ronngyu to talk about Phase 1 and Phase 2 and getting into the Pro League after years of trying. Check it out. I'm here joined by the wonderful Ronngyu, the support for Sanguine, here to talk about Phase 2, Phase 1, and some other things about his Smite career. Starting with Phase 2, I know that recently, just like the past 3 games, have been kind of losses for you guys, which is a little bit uncharacteristic. Can you talk about maybe the mentality coming off of, some of these losses as a team?
I think all of us expect these losses. I mean, you don't expect to lose, but you always expect to win. But you know when something's gonna happen, like bad, or because this Cream's just being like not good at all. We're just not communicating more. We're just, I don't know, getting tilted like not usual. I mean, I don't know. It's like another environment. It's not like the Sanguine that we know.
Sure.
But now we're just recovering because we're a team. We're not perfect. We can have, I don't know, problems and downs.
Yeah.
So now we're just trying to focus on getting the line again.
Sure. I think all teams go through that. I remember Slaney was on my show a couple weeks ago, and he said that maybe a few weeks back, Ghost was going through some similar things where scrims were not be as effective of a practice as they had wanted and things like that. So speaking about sort of the past couple weeks, the most recent stuff, what exactly did you guys do during your bye week? Was it mostly to sort of like reset mentally and you guys didn't focus too much on Smite, or was it more like grinding a lot of Smite and like trying out some new strategies and things like that?
We plan to, I don't know, go to vacations, I don't know, like as a team, going whatever, just disconnect. But then we realized that we don't need that. We just need to plan because we're here to play the game, not to chill. So we just were like, let's play the game, let's scream with whoever wants. And we just pretty much been practicing all the time to get the energy back or the feeling back.
Sure. Speaking of that, I've been asking some of the other players that I have interviewed about this long phase and burnout. And I know that you guys and your team especially might be some of the people that play Smite the most in the Pro League. Are you guys concerned at all about burnout, especially with this long phase, the triple round robin that is happening?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like exhausting, but at the same time, it's better, I think, because we're going to be here for a year. So it's better to be competing or having something in your mind than just playing Smite for no reason for 1 month or whatever. So
sure.
I like the long phase.
You like the long phase? You don't think that burnout can affect you guys? Are you guys just built differently a little bit?
Yeah, I think probably it's like not the same feeling because we already beat a lot of SPL teams and we qualify as number 1. We won the SPL one, so it's not the same energy right now. But we just need to keep going because this is not the end, so we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of you guys and maybe your team, a lot of analysts and community members and casters, they kind of seem to think that you team are people who like to play meta gods and meta picks and things like that. Do you guys feel that way about yourselves? Are you guys just there like grinding out these meta picks to be able to push them as far as they can go in the SPL?
Yeah, I mean, it's right, and I don't agree that much to it, because probably the only meta cards we play is like Jamoya. I don't think Merly is in meta right now,
Sure.
it's okay. But back to days, I think we're just tryharding all the picks metas. So yeah.
So you don't think right now that you guys are playing what people would consider like the meta picks? You guys think you have maybe your own identity a little bit?
Yeah, we have our like little bit. I mean, we play what we know we can work with it.
Sure. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether it's like meta or not. As long as it like works for you guys, you're happy to pick it up.
Yeah.
Perfect. Did you guys feel that there was a big shift in adjusting to this new meta after the mid-season patch, after Phase 1? Especially since you guys did so well in Phase 1?
Yeah, I think no, I don't think so. I think it's just more, I think, of mentality and personality that is affecting our losses. So probably not.
Well, I mean, even early on in Phase 2, you guys were still getting wins. I mean, I remember you guys beat Ghost in a set, and I think you beat Radiance in a set as well, right?
We won one game.
Oh, yeah, maybe that was 2-1. Yeah, I'm getting confused. But you did beat a bunch of other teams early on in Phase 2. So, was your adjustment to the meta early on, was that something that you guys made like consciously were trying to adjust to some things after the mid-season patch early on to still have that success? Or was it just like everyone in the league is trying to figure out what is good after this huge patch, and so you're just like trying to play things that you're comfortable with?
Yeah, I think the problem is that we have been playing the same since 2 years. People are realizing that it's like just play early game against Sanguine, or just play on this side, or just gang, I don't know, Netro because he used actives bad or whatever. And people are gonna realize at the time that we our playstyle, so we have to change it like a little bit, and we're forced to do it, because if we don't do anything special or different, we're gonna be in the same line forever. So
Sure.
probably it's just the way that we are forcing our playstyle to be changed. But I think we will be good with some time.
Sure. I know a lot of other teams, especially some of the lower end teams, consider much of the phase to be sort of like maybe not practice, but like training grounds to get ready for like playoffs and worlds at the end. Since you guys, most of your team has already been to worlds, do you guys also prioritize maybe the end of the year more than some of the games that are happening right now, especially in the middle of the phase?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were talking. Like, we were losing, but it's not like the end. As I say, we're just gonna focus on words, because right now, if we are committing mistakes, we have to fix it for not to doing words, because words is like the last step of every of the year. If you do well in the split, but you fucked it up in words, it's basically you do nothing entire year.
Sure.
So it's basically just focus on words, but we also keep the mind on the SPL too, because it's important.
Yeah. Maybe moving on to Phase 1 a little bit here. I think everyone... I don't think anyone expected you guys to finish number 1 overall. And that is not like a knock on you guys. It's just, we expected that the SPL would be a very high caliber. And early on, especially I think before Phase 1, a lot of people didn't know if your team was, up to the quality of the league. What were your expectations coming into the league? Did you guys think you could finish first? Is that something that, was in your mind starting out before Phase 1 even started, maybe?
My mind at the beginning was like not to lose against Obey, but only when Weekend was on the roster,
Mm-hmm.
just because the beef or whatever.
Sure.
But then when he left, I just didn't care losing to any teams because I know we're losing. I don't know, maybe some games or probably more than the we're gonna win. But I just wanted like to have good games, not to I don't know stop everyone because it
Mm-hmm.
will be like boring to.
Yeah.
So I expect like to be top 4 or top 3 maybe, but I didn't imagine like I will be the top 1 SPL, because it's our first year and it's our first place.
Yeah. Well, speaking of number one, that did give you guys an advantage in the playoffs. You got to choose your opponent in the semifinal. So now that I have you here, I'm just going to ask you straight up. Why'd you guys choose? I think you chose Ghost, right? Or
Radiance.
Radiance?
No, Radiance.
Yeah.
Radiance.
Why'd you guys choose Radiance over Ghost?
Because we beat Radiance 2-1 the
Sure.
last time it was literally the last match we played in the SPL.
Mm.
So we're just based on that. So we beat Radiance 2-1. So let's just pick Radiance. Ghost is a good team. We're not scared of them, but I don't know. I think it was like if they were playing with Basking or Cabinet, he was our decision based on because
Mm.
because we didn't know that much. So
Sure.
we were just like let's get Radiance. But then I was thinking I don't know with who was, and I was like, yo, I think we should pick Ghost, but we already picked Radiance and we lost 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say what would happen, right? If you pick Ghost,
Yeah.
right? Like Ghost could win. They're a strong team too, so it's hard to say whether the outcome would be different or anything like that. But I just wanted to know because like this is a new thing. We've never really seen this happen before in any LAN. Getting to choose your opponent. So I just wanted to. Did you like having that choice? Is that something that you guys would want to have in the future?
Yeah, I think it's for MSI. I think it's good because it's not like a important thing
Hmm.
or like a world champion, whatever. So I think it's okay. Like have other things.
Sure. But if this was at Worlds, would you maybe not feel so happy about it?
Yeah, it will be. I don't know, kind of uncomfortable maybe.
Sure. Are there, since you guys are new to the SPL, I imagine, before this, you maybe weren't scrimming too many SPL teams. I imagine, like, before Worlds last year, you weren't scrimming too many SPL teams. Now that you've had, like, all this time to scrim SPL teams, for the whole year, basically, what are some things you've learned from scrimming SPL teams that you haven't seen in some of the lower level scrims?
I think first of all is the schedule
Hmm.
because when I was in the SML or before that, the
Mm-hmm.
schedule was we have scrims at 7. It was 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
But now in the SPL, I have scrims at 1, and then I have scrims at 5, or
Sure.
maybe it's more practice. It's more intense. It's like professional. That it has to be right.
Yeah, of course. Would you
And
say
all,
continue?
and also probably the environment you just feel is so much better because I don't know when you were screaming SML it was just picking whatever and not no strategy nor nothing
Mm-hmm.
at least for it was like not that competitive for us or we were not like super professionals but now that we are here to play it's like an environment that you have to be focused you have to be aware that if you're practicing you're gonna do well and you're not gonna waste anyone's time.
Sure. Right, because there's another team that's also practicing too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um. So, sort of keeping on with this, since you went to Worlds, I think for the first time last year, as a team.
Twice. Oh, for us, team, yeah.
Yeah, as a team, it was your first time. What are some things that maybe you learned from Worlds that you've been able to use in the SPL this season? Is there anything that you learned from Worlds?
Yeah, I think that I learned is not going with one plan, and it was bad too because I'm gonna say that we played rival, but we didn't have like a model or like a video that they recently played. It was like 3 months or 1 month ago
Sure.
that they played, so we didn't have like a real evidence or a real gameplay that we will say, oh, they're gonna play like this. I mean, it's goes right, they're gonna play like the same,
Hmm.
but in that moment we were lack of information, and we just play qualify for World. So it was like a disadvantage. So you need to be probably more prepared if you're like a rookie team.
Yeah.
So I think I learned that to have like a plan B.
Sure, sure. Okay, last thing, Ronngyu. I've been pestered by all my analysts and all the other coaches. I gotta ask you guys, why? What's up with Sanguine showing up late to scrims?
Okay, difficult question.
Yeah, I asked the hard-hitting questions.
Okay, first of all, I think it was two things. One was that we woke up late, like it was true, like we were late scrims. And the second one is that Metroid sometimes fucked it up with the schedule. Because we were, I don't know, we were just eating, chilling, or whatever. And then Metroid's like, oh shit, we had a scrims. And I was like, damn. So yeah, pretty much it was our schedule sleeping that right now it's already fixed like 100%. I promise it's 100% because we have like a schedule. Like at 11 we have to wake up. At 12 we have to be in the living room, and we have to be talking and having breakfast or just talking.
Sure.
So it's and you are there. Literally, all of us are there talking, and there's no way we can be like late again. I mean, hopefully, right?
Hopefully. I remember Rowe was our guest analyst on the show this week, and he had a story where Metroid had scheduled scrims with Renegades, but you guys had an SPL match at the same time.
Yeah.
So we had a good joke about that.
Yeah, I mean, also we also had to get a board to write our schedule because that happened too. That Metroid asked, I think PK too, the same day we played.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are we playing PK if we played today against PK? He was like, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, it's about, but now with our board and we're being more disciplined, I think things gonna be better.
That's good to hear. Okay, Metroid, I'm all out of questions, so now's the time.
Metroid?
Not Metroid. I'm sorry, Ronngyu. I'm sorry. I'm all out of questions, and now's the time, usually in the interview, where I hand it over to you, and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can shout out whoever you want to shout out. You can call out whoever you want to call out. I'm all about stirring some beef, so the floor is yours, Ronngyu. Take it away.
Okay. Okay, I have to think about it. I want to shout out Sanguine. I want to shout out Blaine. I want to shout everyone that is still support us after the losses, because we know there's a lot of haters, but we don't care, to be honest. We're just playing for the people that we love, that is LATAM, and we want to be them for them every day.
Sure. All right, now that you've had some time to think, anyone to call out in the SPL, you know?
I want to say thanks to PK that they have already canceled us 2 days in a row scrims. So thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Ronngyu, for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it. I think it was a really great time. Thanks so much for showing up, and hopefully there are some more wins for your team.
Thank you.
All right, Sanguine versus PK. I think this is the first time we've seen PK finally win versus a top 4 team. I know we've talked about it a lot, but PK looks really remarkable in this set. Paul doing all sorts of Paul things. I think he got hell in the first game and then played set in the second game. You know, what are your thoughts on PK finally winning versus the top team here?
Again, just the team finding their identity. I think that's what I think. I don't know. I was watching like the PK videos like months ago, or even just like up until a month ago, and they were just saying like once we find our identity, we'll be fine, because they were just struggling to find that. Just like every team, once they find what they do best and they do that thing, and they find what it's best against and ban the things that it's bad against, they do really well. I also think Sanguine, you know, coming off a bad loss earlier in the week, it made PK have a lot more information draft-wise, so I think they got the upper hand in drafts. Not only because they play like these specific niche gods, like what Paul played, but also because they saw what Sanguine played the few days before or the day before. I will say just quickly that I didn't watch much of this game because I had a game the next day, so I was like hard preparing for that. but it looked pretty dominant from what I saw for sure.
Well, yeah, and especially Cuvo taking Tsukiyomi away from Panatome. I think Cuvo looked really.
He didn't
fantastic.
even take it away because Panatome didn't go for it. You got Nemesis.
I guess that's
instead.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, like why is it that you went one game where you prioritize them, but then this one you're just like, maybe it's not as good. I got run down with it.
Cuvo looked fantastic on it.
They won game. Panatome won against United with it in game 1, and then I think he had a really bad KDA the next time. And some people, when they have really bad games, they're like, all right, I'm not picking that god for like 3 weeks. Just get me away from it.
Oh, okay. So
it might have been that like when he moved on to the next set, he's like, I can't do that right now.
So it's more trauma than information. Like, that went kind of bad.
He grabbed his Nemesis teddy bear and stayed safe.
Okay.
So it reminds me of Zap during Worlds, where he played ISIS, I think, in the semifinals. I don't think he played ISIS for 3 months after that.
I figured some players are like, okay, that didn't go too well. I could maybe try it again. I'm not sure about the information. But others, it's like, maybe it's still good, but I don't care. It made me feel bad. I'm lost on it, so I'm not going to touch it.
So I love the Sanguine guys. I'm really happy they're in the league. I'm happy they're doing as well as they are. And, I talked about this earlier, about not taking away anything from winning teams. I thought the Knights looked great. I thought they executed well. But this was the first game where I really felt like Sanguine just played like shit. Like, just straight. Like, I did not feel like they played at 40% of what they were capable of and showed us, and everything was sloppy. And the Knights obviously did what they should as a good team, take advantage of it and run away with it. But I thought Sanguine played extremely poorly relative to what we know that they're capable of.
Yeah, we've seen really high highs from Sanguine, so you would expect better things. But
yeah,
and again, it is just like giving credit to PK as well, because like I think, for example, like their preparation, like I said, they saw the day in advance what they played, and then like Paul picks Hell into Hera, which is a great matchup, and with Shinto being like one of Sanguine's like rocks where they need Shinto to do well as a team. Picking Hell into Hera, a great matchup. Picking Set into Thoth, even better matchup. I think they just had the real big upper hand in draft, and then you could say like Sanguine aren't playing well as well. But to their defense, I guess I'll play just devil's advocate and say like they had a set before, they were preparing for that set, whereas PK had been preparing for Sanguine the whole time. So that's just my coach perspective, or coach bias, really, just like giving preparation a bigger value. But I just think they had their number really well in draft and put pressure on the right spots as well. So that was really intelligent from PK. But credit to PK as well, just playing well more than just preparation.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, then on to what I would consider the game of the week, which is E United versus Obey. Another 3-game slugfest here, as it says on the Smites esports site. Really a back and forth set. I think we have to start with the game 1 backdoor. What you guys think? I think this is basically what Paul attempted to do maybe 4 weeks ago, but the United boys actually get to pull it off. I think the Ratatosker helped a lot in that.
I think that game was over. I mean, there's just no way you stop that, right? It's entertaining to watch, but that's exactly what you should be doing. You could have had the entirety of Obey standing on top of that Titan, and if all 3 of them come in like that, they're going to take it. There's just no way. Yeah, you can zone as much as you want. It just does not matter.
Right. It just would have been really disappointing to see them not do that. I think that's the important thing. Like, if they didn't do that, then they've done so much wrong.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think... Yeah, I mean, just for the set as a whole, I think Obey threw it. I think they looked really good. I mean, look at the game 2, right? I mean, they absolutely obliterated them.
Yeah, definitely.
Like standing still, obliterated them game 2. They had them figured out, and I think they threw the 3rd game. But no, I mean, the first game was really entertaining. It was fun to watch. It was good back and forth. United won with that, cool ending. And then I think Obey bounced back really hard, and I think they had the opportunity to win, and they didn't. And I think that, again, this is one of those weeks where it's like, okay, did United play really well, or did Obey throw? And I felt like they kind of choked it on the 3rd game. I think Wolfie and Sino in that 3rd game were particularly underwhelming. But
it's also just, and again, I'll just put my coach bias in there. I think it was also really fun to see 2 teams that had already played previous in the week quickly adjust to what they think they're going to be facing based on what they've seen of the other team, like just a day or two ago. I think that's really fun to see players adapt so quickly. But I think it's also important to make that, important point to make that we probably didn't see the best of either of those teams because it takes a lot more time than that to properly prepare. So I don't know where these teams stand based on each other. I think Raythan says Obey's winning if it's a best of 5 kind of thing, or if it's like a long week that they can prepare for each other. I just think it'll be really entertaining to see them with more preparation. I think they're really even right now. 2 teams that have had roster changes, one that's grinded it out from the bottom and one that's fresh on a honeymoon phase. I think it's just a fun set to watch. Again, I didn't watch this one as much as I watched previous games in the week just because it was a day before I had SPL.
Sure.
So I had pretty busy, but yeah, again, United as well, a fun team to watch.
This one made me nervous. Jesus. Just because of the Arachne. He did that against Radiance, and Arachne always goes for the buff camp to put her webs down, and the enemy team just has to 4-man get rid of them. I guess he got a little too greedy, a little too emotional the first time around because he tried to stop them. What? As an Arachne level 1, he tried to stop 4 people. They dragged him down, and that was kind of atrocious. But they did end up winning that, so maybe that also goes, okay, even though I had a rough first time round, I can sort of be relevant late because he does pull out pressure. This is not. This doesn't seem stellar from Sino. This is not what you'd expect from a jungler of like, oh, he got your mage and he got your ADC and he's soloing people left and right. He's such a nuisance and he's getting the relics that he needs. He's probably dying for it, but the rest of the team's picking up for it. Sino's really. I think he's gonna start taking like another whip from the community. First time it was warrior supports. Now it's might be his Arachne creating pressure.
I think the community should lay off him as well. I think he should bring something unique to the team because I think that's what they needed. I don't think they needed just the jungler. I think they needed a lot more than that after what we saw out of phase 1.
Sounds good. The last set of the week this week was Radiance versus the Renegades, and glad we have Rowe on deck to break this one down because it was also Variety's debut for your team. Maybe let's start us off, Rowe, talk about how Variety has been coming on to this squad, just replacing one person and having to bring Variety in. How has that been? Has that been a smooth transition so far?
Has been, yeah. It's been really, really good. I guess I'll start from the beginning, or at least the beginning of like when we started to make changes, just to give people some context because I know a lot of people have question marks.
Sure.
I think Harrowin did, like talking about the United situation, I think Harrowin did a good job releasing that twin longer. If you haven't read it, go read it. And just explaining a lot of backstory. I don't think I'll give that much detail because I don't want to air any dirty laundry and start drama or whatever. But we obviously got to the point where we weren't happy with Solo on the team, Solo or Troll that is. For reasons I'll keep behind the scenes. But I will say, like I said in the interview I had with Aggro last week, that he has his merits. He's very strong in certain areas, just not the areas we needed. And I think he made a few mistakes throughout the year that he shouldn't have made. He'll grow up a lot from the whole thing, and just I don't want people to think he got kicked because he was bad, because that's not why he got kicked. Just like I mentioned with this whole lane having a deep pool of good players, he is in that pool for sure. And I hope to see him back as well, because when we were having a fun time on the team, he's a good kid and he deserves better. But what happened, and we got to the point where we needed to replace him. We trialed a couple of options, and eventually, obviously, Variety was one of those options. We decided on Variety. I will say, and this takes nothing away from Variety, that it was a close call. I think, again, there's just so much talent in that role. But we needed Variety for certain reasons, and that's just like confidence, leadership, and well, those are the most two for sure. And just me not having to worry about his play at all. I've never had to like look at Variety and say like, oh my god, he's playing bad this week. I've never seen him that way. I think just throughout the seasons, because I was in EU, on an EU team before I came to NA, I always highly respected him, especially sitting in the community center watching him, taking down Dimmy in like the finals, even though they lost that set, was huge. So he's not a player I have to watch out for. So it was a safe pickup in that regard. But I know he has high peaks, just like we saw in that like World Championship. And it's
we
been
all knew
so
it was coming, though, right? Like, like
it was closer than people think. That's for sure.
What were the other options? If you
I'm not gonna share the other options.
You're not gonna tell them I was the second guest.
There's
At least
no way.
Dang.
There's no
That's what
way
everybody
it was
thinks.
that
Well,
close.
trust me. Look, after more practice I've had with Variety, I'm just getting happier and happier that I picked them up. That's how well it's going, right? People think
It was that close.
I mean, it was pretty close. Like I guess I'm putting some like arbitrary numbers on it, but like, let's just say there were 3-4 options. You know, it was like 60-40, some people 60-40 for another person. And eventually like the math checked out on Variety, and people wanted him the most for reasons that I won't disclose, like just because it gives too much insight to our team, not because it's like bad reasons.
So
because he 4v1'd Barra. Okay, right there.
I thought it was an obvious decision, right? Somebody with obvious, extreme SPL experience, a reputation for consistency, has gone all the way, right, and lost, right? But like,
in the end, that's why we picked him up, because it's consistency and we don't have to worry about him. But there's a lot of talent in the solo lane that are unproven, and they might have really high peaks. Like, let's bring Jake into the conversation. Not that he's a solo laner, or he has played solo before, but like, nobody respected him before he came into the league. Everybody thought it was a question mark. Everybody wrote off our team, but now everybody thinks Jake is one of the best players on our team, and that's because he is. These players need time to prove themselves, and there are players in every role that could be really, really SPL worthy with the right leadership and just a chance.
Sure.
So why can't you tell us who else you were looking at?
Well, I think it just devalues those other people. Like, I guess maybe it's a compliment to say it was close for them.
I would 100% say it's a compliment.
In the role where it's considered like fully stacked with talent to even go, we were thinking about them. I think other teams would go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just from an esports show perspective.
I'm still
that
not gonna
says like keep an eye out for these guys. Like, I
just think keep an eye out for the solo lane. Honestly, just or like when a rookie comes from the solo lane, actually just screw it. When a rookie comes from anywhere, like stop questioning it as much as you have been at community, because there are some really like bright diamonds that just need some leadership around down there.
I felt that way about Guy J, and I was really sad to see him go.
I think people still think he's really good as well. I was sad to see him go, but we'll see him back, just like we'll see Solo or Troll back. And we're already seeing Variety back, obviously. Anyway, back to Variety. I mean, just perfect fit for what we needed, and a safe bet as well. I just don't have to be concerned about him whatsoever, and it's so much fun having him on the team. He's a fun guy to hang around. I've met him many times throughout the years, and I think the most fun bringing a new person to the team has been like another person seeing how good Jake is behind the scenes and seeing how funny he is, because like Jake will do something good in game and Variety will say like, holy shit, Jake, that was incredible, you're a beast. Like, and it's just fun to see, and Jake will just go like, he's just like an awkward kid and it's funny. It's just been really fun to show another person Jake behind the scenes, because he's incredible. And just like Variety did super well in his set this week as well, which I guess we'll talk about.
Yeah, just one more question about signing Variety. And correct me if I'm wrong. Was Variety on that Dignitas team when Lasbra was their
sub?
Their sub, yeah.
And I think they may have lived together on
or very close to each other or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but they were close.
It was him and Cuvo and Laz and everybody that was in the house together.
I think he was there at one point for a couple months from Australia. So that was again one of the merits to picking up Variety as well. It seemed a safer bet with Lasbra. I think Lasbra has a high peak, so having someone that enables Lasbra more is a good option as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that fully.
Yeah. All right, it's time for us to make Week 9 picks. Let's start with the first game of next week, which is Ghost versus Sanguine. Wraith, let's start with you. Ghost versus Sanguine. Who you got?
Ghost Gaming. Sanguine look like crap. I don't think they're going to bounce back that quickly. Highly emotional team. I think the last week's going to weigh on them. And I think Ghosts are looking pretty consistent and pretty spiffy after that win against Space Station.
2-0?
All day long. 2-0. Not even close. 2-0, sub 30 minutes each.
Unless they're trolling, right?
Unless they're trolling.
All right, Ro, let's go to you. Ghost versus Sanguine.
I'm going to say Ghost as well. I agree with a lot of Wraithen's reasonings, but I think 2-1. I think game 2 win from Sanguine. I think it's one, Ghost, Sanguine, Ghost. I just think Sanguine hopefully can bounce back. I just want to see a better set out of them because I think they owe it to themselves as well. But again, I think Ghost is going to win. I don't think Sanguine will bounce back enough, but I do think they'll do a little bit better than what they did last week.
Sure. Rowe says that the Ghost Boys are going to troll Frost. What do you think?
Oh, they're definitely going to troll, that's for sure. But I think it's going to be 2-0 Ghost. I think there's just way too much information for Sanguine. The Ghost is one of the more cerebral teams to be playing this, especially like Slaney. And just all the coaches are incredibly cerebral about it, except some are more about like the discipline aspect, whereas these are more think outside the box. And there's not much thinking outside the box to be done left with Sanguine. They're just way too consistent for their own good.
Sure.
So 2-0 Ghost. They are going to troll, but I still think they win.
Yeah. I remember when we had Slaney on our show, he seemed to think that the Ghost Boys were in a bit of a rut, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago. It kind of looks like they've come out of that rut and are sort of back on top, and everything is firing at the same time. So I got Ghost to win this one as well, 2-0. All right, then. Let's move on to the next set of the week, which is Radiance versus Space Station Gaming. Started with Wraith first last time, so let's start with you, Rowe. Radiance versus Space Station. Who do you got in this one?
It comes down to Dades, I think. I think Space Station 2-1, Radiance, again, same with bouncing back, just like Sanguine. I don't think Radiance are going to bounce back fast enough. I hope they're practicing really hard this week, but I think Space Station just have a deeper book right now than what Radiance might have. So 2-1, again, for Space Station this time. But I don't think any of the games will be super dominant. I think hopefully all of them will be close. Maybe not long, but generally close for the early games at least.
Yep. Sounds good. All right, Frost. Radiance versus Space Station Gaming. Who you got?
2-0 Space Station. Space Station has like a sort of playstyle that is really punishing against players who have a high risk. And if we fall out of step even a smidgen, we get punished for it severely. So I think Space Station is just going to win by default of playstyles 2-0.
Sure. All right. Last but not least, well, I guess I'm last. Rathan, who you got? Radiance versus Space Station Gaming.
Oh, man, I voted for Space Station here, and I think it's going to be probably a 2-1. But part of me, and that's what I'm going to go with, but part of me feels like the Radiance guys, strike me as the kind of players where like you get like pissed off for greatness. You know what I mean? Where you lose, you take it really hard, and it makes you come out 10 times as fired up the next time. There are teams that go down when you lose and you get into a rut like Ghost. I think Radiance is just knowing the personality is probably the opposite. So I think we could see them coming out and surprising the hell out of everybody, but my gut is a 2-1 from Space Station.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all you guys here, especially considering what we saw from Radiance last week. And we know that Space Station has basically been at the top of the league for the entirety of this whole season. So I'll give it to Space Station 2-1 as well. All right, moving right along, we have Rowe's team Renegades playing E United. Let's start with Frost here on this one. Renegades versus E United. Frost, who you got?
God, this is a rough one because I love Barra, I love Baskin.
And I'm right here.
Yeah, and you're here too, looking at me. And there's a bit more tenure though on Renegades. I think this is one of those games where I give it to like an old school ranked match. That's what's gonna happen in this set. But I think it's gonna come out all 3 games 2-1 Renegades.
Okay, Rathan, let's move on to you. Renegades versus E United. This is basically the variety revenge tour, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I think it's Renegades 2-0 and a fast 2-0. Going back to the whole like how do players play when they're pissed. Mm-hmm. I could see Harry taking this one to the house.
Right.
Mm. Yeah. Like I mean I think this is going to be ugly. Mm. And I hope it is because it's a good storyline. But no, yeah, I think Renegades 2-0. We'll see how it goes.
Sure. All right, on to you, Rowe. I'm sure you're going to give your boys the 2-0 here.
Yeah.
But are there any other thoughts that you have about this set?
Yeah, I mean, try to remove like my bias from it. We've beaten the United every time.
Yeah.
Like we should, in theory, beat them again. I think we have an advantage having Harry from that team. So I think that's, again, another advantage. Add on my confidence as a coach in my own team. It's a 2-0. I think, or I hope it's as dominant as Wraithen hopes it is as well. That would be great for a storyline. But yeah, obviously, I'm going to vote for the 2-0 for sure.
Sure, yeah. This one seems to be like almost the match of the week for me. Especially with all the narratives that are happening between these two teams. So I'm excited to see a good set. I also agree with you guys. I think it's going to be Renegade taking this one. I don't know. You guys are looking really good this past week and making me feel good about it. So
I think Jake's going to eat Gino alive, honestly. Like they're both, prior to the SPL, they were both sort of like be on the lookout for these supports in the SML. But now Jake's had the advantage of actually having being reinforced into the SPL. He's just got the experience now.
Sure.
Yep.
All right, moving right along. We got PK versus Obey in the fourth set of the week. I think we got to start with you here, Wraithen, on this one. PK versus Obey. Who you got?
Obey 2-1.
Oh, it's kind of an upset, isn't it?
I'm going hard. I create content with the Knights. Streamer. I love those guys, but I've been extremely consistent about my rooting for the underdogs in Obey. I think they have got the momentum. I think they are a very momentum-driven team. I think their mood, I have seen these guys after their games come over to the house for dinner or whatever, and their mood changes so drastically for the entire week after they play, from when they do well and when they don't. And I think they're going to keep this momentum rolling. I think they're getting into the groove that they want to get into. And I think, when you got this like battle of the middle and things are starting to shake up and they're doing well and they stomp Radiance, I think we're going to see some great play out of them. Or they're going to lay a wet fart. That's going to be terrible.
You said 2-1, right, Wraith?
2-1. Yep.
2-1 Obey. All right. Rowe, how about you? PK versus Obey.
I'm going to give 2-1 the other way. I'm going to give 2-1 to PK, my ex-team, or ex-organization, I should say. I think there's the potential they read Obey as hard as they read Sanguine, and we saw how dominant that was. But I think, Obey have a lot of time, again, being one of the teams that practices one of the hardest in the league, double scrimming all the time. They have a lot of games to prepare or cook up something new. I think United read Obey pretty well, and hopefully they'll learn those lessons from that and bring something new that Knights aren't ready for. So take that one game. But I think Knights are smart enough, just based on last week, that they can read ahead of time and be prepared for a decent amount of what Obey could bring out and prepare well for that, and just take those wins pretty convincingly. I'm going to vote 2-1 and kind of like an odd vote. I'm going to say 2 really dominant games from PK and 1 really dominant game from Obey, and they probably won't have any close games.
All right, let's wrap it up with you here, Frost. PK versus Obey.
Yeah, it's very similar to my logic. In a 2-1, it's going to be Knights with the 2. Obey with the 1, because even though I think Obey is capable of punching up, Knights have this sort of like this ego that's around them, this aura of ego against teams that they in their heads go, yeah, this is easy. They kick them. They kick them hard. Other teams, like we mentioned Sanguine, once they get cocky, they sort of fall apart. But Knights is one of those, we got this in the bag. And I feel like they still have that sort of disrespect for Obey. And I think they're going to kick hard, especially Paul.
Sure. I think that aura that you're talking about, Frost, is called swagger. And we know my boy Zap is full of the swagger. So I'm going to give it to PK 2-0 this week. Because I love Zap. And Zap's got some swagger. So let's give it to PK. All right, moving on to Ghost versus Radiance. I think we're on you, Rowe, to start us off here. Ghost versus Radiance. Who you got?
I think this is the toughest one of the week, honestly.
Yeah.
Damn, I wish I could answer this after we see both of them play on Saturday, but
I'll be changing my vote based on the.
I think me too. I think right now, I honestly think
Friday.
It's a 50-50. Yeah, I honestly think it's a 50-50, but I would probably say Ghost just based on what we've seen from Ghost last week and what we've seen of Radiance last week. That's all the evidence I have to back it up. My opinion may change in one way or the other, but right now I'd say Ghost and a 2-1, just because I think it's so close. I think Ghost would take it unless Radiance bounce back hard on Saturday. So we'll see.
Sure. Frost, how about you? Ghost versus Radiance.
Ghost with Radiance. It's God. It really is going to come down to how they play against Space Station. So this is kind of rough without that extra information. But I think it could look to be a 2-1. This is still one of those teams where Ghost will take a win. Then the second game is information, or the troll game, if you will, and then finish it off clean. So 2-1 Ghost.
All right, Raythan. I think I haven't gotten to you on this one yet. Ghost versus Radiance.
This is going to come down entirely to how Radiance play against Space Station. I think if they come off a win against Space Station, then they 2-1 Ghost. I think if they lose to Space Station, they might just implode. And then we see a 2-0 Ghost way. But I mean, my instinct is I think, like we talked about earlier with, my Space Station versus Radiance pick, I don't think they've had enough time to kind of come back and practice. But, maybe this past week has been good for them. I think Ghost takes it 2-0. I think Radiance lose to Space Station and are going to be taking that loss pretty hard.
All right. Ghost 2-0 for Raythan. Man, I'm also conflicted about this one. It's two strong teams, except one is sort of coming off of maybe 3 weeks of not playing. I think that basically tilts me in the favor of Ghost here. So I'll give it to Ghost. A lot of people have been sort of flaming us, or maybe flaming me for picking 2-1s. I know some of the pros see our picks and they're like, there's so many 2-1s, but I think we've been validated because last week there's a bunch of 3-game sets. So I'll go 2-1 Ghost here in the Ghost versus Radiance set.
But then they'll get mad at us if we say 2-0.
Yeah, they will.
There's no winning with them.
You can never win.
Dude, I'm just waiting for the DM from somebody from PK that's like, what are you doing?
All right,
I do vote against them. I want them to win, but
Sure. All right, last game of next week, week 9, Sanguine versus Obey. This is sort of like basically where we started this whole season, I feel like, was Sanguine versus Obey. So now we're coming right back to it in week 9 here. I think I have to start with you, Frost. Sanguine versus Obey, who you got?
Well, I did predict that they'd take a spanking at the start of the week, or start of the weekend. And I think it's a lose-lose. Either they are taking it kind of easy right now to avoid burnout and make a stellar performance for playoffs, or they're not. They're in a rut, and that loss is not going to go well for them. On top of, they might feel a little cocky still against Obey. So I think this is going to be 2-0 for Obey, and I think it's going to be a very clean performance.
Sure. Raythan, I can already guess that you're probably picking Obey in this one, but
I am indeed, sir. 2-0. I think Sanguine lose hard to Ghost, as I mentioned earlier, and I think out of every team, they take it the hardest, and I think Obey capitalize on that.
Sounds good. Finish us up here, Rowe. Sanguine versus Obey. Who you got?
I expect better from Sanguine than what the others do, but I still don't think they win. But I think, I'll be boring and say it's a 2-1 in Obey's favor. I think Obey are riding the momentum, whereas Sanguine's much the opposite. It is unfortunate for Obey that they have to go back-to-back. I think they're playing 2 days in a row.
Yeah, they're playing PK on Saturday and Sanguine on Sunday. Yep.
So I think that does hurt. It takes away time to practice. Not time to practice, but time to prepare. But I still think they win, just because they're both momentum-based teams, and one's going one way, the other's going the other. So 2-1 for Obey.
Yeah, this does also feel like a coin flip. It feels like a lot of these games, especially in the second half of this phase, are starting to feel like coin flips. I guess that speaks to the parity of the league so far. Man, I really don't know who to pick here. Let's just go Sanguine 2-1. I think it could go either way. It could go Obey 2-1. It could go Obey 2-0. It could go Sanguine 2-0 as far as I'm concerned.
Coward.
Hey, I'll commit to Sanguine 2-1, but I'll just say that it could go anyway, and I'm not sure.
That'll be a game to watch.
Definitely
That'll be a really good
I
one.
really think it's just volatile right now because of attitudes of who's hungry, who's feeling a bit burnt out, who's got new teammates that they need to go kind of all out for and fit together. And if right now is going to be the most unsteady part, or the second most. The most unsteady is at the start, then this middle bit. Once we get over this hump going into the playoffs, that's when everybody's going to be firing off. Well, it depends. I know some teams are more like, you know what, we already kind of are seeded in. We don't have anything to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I think everybody wants to win playoffs. There's a decent amount of money on the line, and I think everybody just wants to prove themselves just before Worlds. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Be sure to catch us every week on twitch.tv/SmiteGame at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And we have extended cuts of all of our past episodes on our YouTube channel, which is APAM Productions. If you want to give me any ideas for future guests or future guest analysts and pro interviews, please give me a DM on APAM2 on Twitter or at APAM Productions on Twitter. Finally, please subscribe to the APAM Productions YouTube for extended cuts of my discussions with these analysts, as well as extended cuts of my interviews with pro players. I know there's an hour-long interview that I did with Zap that just went up last week, so be sure to check all those things out. And we'll see you guys here at the same time next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.